Alan Dershowitz is, of course, a professor emeritus at Harvard Law School. He's the author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump, and he joins us tonight. Professor, from what you have seen of this FISA application, what's your response?
Well, I think Congress ought to ask the people who drafted the FISA response why they deliberately left out the fact that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee paid for the Steele dossier. That's question number one. Question number two, why did they, if they did, we don't know about the redactions, why did they leave out the fact that the dossier also had this salacious allegations about urination in beds, the kind of thing that would make any judge look very suspiciously on the source of the material? Instead, what they did is they said this is a guy who had previously given them reliable information without indicating that now it looks like he may be giving them very partisan and very unreliable information. So I think we need to get the answers to those questions before we can come to any firm conclusion.
I'm struck by the treatment that Carter Page has received in the press. Here's a guy who's not been charged with any crime. There's no credible evidence he betrayed his country. He's been accused of treason by his own government and spied upon, and yet the reservoir of sympathy for him seems very shallow. No one seems to care. Why is that?
Because in our partisan world, the presumption of innocence only applies to your side, not the other side. Democrats and people on the left forget the presumption of innocence. They're prepared to argue that a search warrant is proof of guilt or an indictment is proof of guilt. For example, the indictment of the 12 Russians who will never be brought to trial is taken as containing the truth. They're just allegations. It may very well be that they're guilty, and we know there was intrusion or an attempt to intrude on the election, but we have to remember the presumption of innocence. It doesn't only apply to your side of the political spectrum.
That's exactly right. You really are the last liberal in America, and I'm glad that you're here. So recently, the creepy porn lawyer, the guy who's representing Stormy Daniels, said he knows about the contents of taped conversations between Donald Trump and his lawyer, Michael Cohen. You pointed out the obvious. If he knows what's inside, then he's able to obtain sealed information, and that's bad. Here's how you described it.
I do know there's more tapes of President Trump. There's multiple tapes of President Trump, number one.
How do you know there are other tapes involving the President of the United States? Are you privy to what was seized from the office? That's a very important question. I wish you'd answer it.
Well, Alan, I'm not going to answer your question because I don't have to answer your question.
If we're right, then you have access to information that's supposed to be sealed and supposed to be secret. How do you have that information? Well, you know, Avenatti answered it by... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he has the information?
Well, he's that or he's making it up. Look, he also accused me, to deflect from my very hard question, he accused me of making false predictions, whereas all of his predictions are correct. His major prediction in May was that President Trump would resign. We're waiting to see that happen. I predicted accurately what the Supreme Court would decide in the travel ban case. I predicted accurately who President Trump would nominate to the Supreme Court. All of my predictions have come true, and almost none of Avenatti's predictions have come true. Also, the American Bar Association had an article recently about the ethical concerns that lawyers, an ethics expert like Professor Stephen Gillers of NYU, have about Avenatti's conduct. So I think basically his conduct speaks for itself, and my predictions. Look, you know, I wrote a book. You mentioned it before, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. In my book, the predictions are all in there. Anybody can read them. Anybody can see that I've been straight on. I've been accurate. The reason I'm accurate is because I don't have a partisan dog in this fight. I just call them as I see them. And sometimes my predictions help one side or help the other. But I'm not trying to make self-fulfilling prophecies the way Avenatti and others on the extreme side of this are making self-predicting, self-fulfilling prophecies. Let's wait to see if President Trump resigns. And if he doesn't, put Avenatti on the show. Confront him with that prediction. He not only made a prediction, he said, I guarantee you that President Trump will resign after hearing what Rudy Giuliani said and what Avenatti said. It's total nonsense.
We've invited him many times. So far, this is the only show he won't do.
We'll have him on
Professor,
with me.
thank you very much.
Have him on with me against each other. Good.
Anytime. I would love that. Thank you very much.